threat doesn't exist anymore. I'm a Tahari now.
Gentlemen, the most desired woman in Europe!
What do you want with her?
She has connections with many powerful people.
She danced for kings. She seduced generals. She lived as a legend. Mata Hari, the name still drips with mystery, allure, and timeless feminine power. But she was more than a spy, more than a dancer. She was a woman who understood the transformative magic of movement and mystique. So today we are diving into the world of Mata Hari as a symbol of timeless, seductive elegance and what every woman can learn from her mastery of feminine presence and dance. I personally have always been fascinated with this particular feminine icon of Mata Hari, and a few years ago I have read a lot about her because there are many books and novels that have adopted her story, and there are also many movies, but I will link that for you later. But just recently I was reminded of her again when I was visiting the German Spy Museum in Berlin. There was something about her, and then I remembered, yes, Mata Hari, and I thought I have to make a video about her, because if she's not the perfect feminine icon for my channel, then I don't know. Mata Hari is a name that is known to many people, but not many people really know the story behind that name. So who was Mata Hari? Let's start with that. Mata Hari was born Margaretha Zelle in the Netherlands in 1876. Her early life was marked by both privilege and tragedy. Her father went bankrupt, her mother died when she was a teenager, and then she married a Dutch officer, a military officer, who abused her, who was violent. But with him, she actually moved to the Dutch East Indies, which is today's Indonesia. And that's the place where she was also introduced to local traditions and learned temple dance. So after her husband's violence and infidelity, she returned to Europe. There were really many crises actually that happened in her life, but she did not break under it, but she decided to go to Paris and to reinvent herself. And this is what she did. She became Mata Hari, which is the translation for Eye of the Day. So what she did there in Paris is she invented a story. She told everyone that she was a Javanese princess who was experienced in this ancient temple dance, those sacred Eastern dances that were very fascinating, especially for the Paris or Parisian society at that time, who were always interested in new exotic things and really crazy about entertainment and everything. So of course it was a good story. She was really good in creating this story around her, so no one dared to question it. And soon she became one of the most famous exotic dancers in Europe. Later she also became entangled in espionage, but we will come to that later, because first let's look at how she became that famous. And of course it has to do with men and with seduction. Mata Hari was not just beautiful, she was clever. She knew how to draw powerful men in her orbit and to make them stay. Her lovers were often wealthy, high-ranking, and completely enchanted by her mystery. They financed her lavish lifestyle. The silks, the pearls, the jewels, the luxury hotel suites in Paris, in Berlin. She was traveling a lot and had a lot of lovers. So she was a courtesan, so to say. But that was nothing very unusual in that time, in which without the power of men, and they were the ones who could give you access to those social circles, to those luxuries, etc. I mean, it's still like that in some ways, but of course in that time that was almost the only way for a woman to really become famous or successful. But in contrast to many other courtesans who did not use what they got access to, she really used it in a smart way. And as portrayed in some of her books, for example, one book that I have read that I really love is called Mata Hari's Last Dance. And I can only recommend that to you. In that book, for example, it is said that her relationships are portrayed as very theatrical. So she treated every encounter like a performance. She let the man believe that they were leading while she quietly was pulling the strings with charm, sensual intelligence, just enough emotional distance to keep them chasing. She made them feel desired and seen. And among her most notable lovers were military officers, diplomats, and influential elites. Some gifted her jewels, others offered protection, travel, introduction. So she was introduced to the elite salons, to embassies, to royal circles even. But it wasn't only the men who built her reputation. She just used what they gave her, the access. In the end, she had a talent, and that was theater and dance. And even though it is said that she was not like the best dancer, she really performed in a way that was absolutely mesmerizing for the public, for the audience. What I want to say is that the special thing about how she used her talent for moving and how she used the sensuality that she could embody, that is what made her very, very famous in the end. But as I said, in order to get there, she needed, of course, access first. And this is how she got it. But then, when she became so famous, and this practically happened overnight, because the Paris audience, they were absolutely amazed and absolutely enchanted by her performance, where she not only moved in a very sensual and soft way, but she also showed a little bit of her body, but not too much. She used feminine dance as a power. Mata Hari did not dance in a way that the cabaret girls were dancing at those times, or the way that ballerinas danced. Her performances were slow, symbolic, sensual. She, for example, performed in translucent veils. She, of course, had those very, very exotic costumes with a lot of pearls and jewels that looked very exotic and new and sacred and somehow mystic and mysterious. She was using gestures a lot. She was using her hands a lot, moving with fluidity and intention. So what she did was not simply entertain. She enchanted, and she awakened something primal and something ancient in her audience. Watching her was a little bit like witnessing a sacred ritual, disguised as performance. So it was really genius what she did, because she used her talent and her sensuality in a way that was very unique at that time. Later on, there were many women dancers who copied her. And as a dancer myself, I deeply understand this power. Feminine movement is really transformative. Belly dance, sensual dance, no matter if it is a couple dance, or a dance that you dance on your own, even walking intentionally. Those are all ways to reconnect and awaken your sensuality, also your softness, your strength. Feminine movement invites us back into our bodies. It is something that really allows us to soften. It allows us to express without speaking. There is even a quote that I just remembered, and I think it is, "The dance is a poem of which each movement is a word." And that's something that Mata Hari said. or at least this is a quote that I have found under her name. Feminine movement is seductive not because it shows, but because it suggests. And this is also the secret of many types of dance that are not showing everything, but they're just suggesting. And what Mata Hari did is she mostly used clothes. So it is also reported that she has been doing kind of striptease on stage. So she was also dressed in those very, very exotic costumes and then letting go some of the pieces during her dance, although she was also undressing herself in a sense like maybe it is comparable to today's Dita Fontees. She still mostly remained dressed, or she had some translucent veils or some things like that, or only revealed parts of her body from a distance. So it was in a way in which gave enough space for imagination. This is also something that is more interesting and more intriguing in this kind of dance, in exotic dance, than simply plain striptease. And also it was more about this exotic and ancient and sacred art. It reminds me a little bit of the concept of a divine feminine goddess. So today I think we would say that she was a divine feminine goddess, or embodied something like that. And of course Mata Hari understood this, and she moved with mystery. She danced not to please, but to evoke. Now we come to the not so beautiful part of Mata Hari's life, the spy accusation. So as I said, Mata Hari was traveling a lot and she had a lot of contacts. She was networking a lot, of course, because of her famous status. So somehow she became, or at least this is what is said, she became entangled in espionage. And when Europe descended into war, that was when this began. It is said that she was seducing military officers, politicians. Of course, her international lifestyle and her network of very powerful people and lovers made her a target. So in the end, she was accused of being a double agent, working for both France and Germany. There was also evidence that she was, for example, delivering messages written with invisible ink and other techniques that were used at the time. There is also a concept of the honey trap. So this is an expression that is often used when talking about female spies. Honey trap, meaning that female spies were often used in a way that they used their feminine charms, their beauty, their sexuality, and their seductive powers to get information and to spy. And that's why it's called honey trap, because even the most powerful and the most intelligent men fell for those female spies. And one of them was Mata Hari. And I think you need to be very, very strong-willed and very, very intelligent as a man not to fall for so much seduction and confidence as embodied by Mata Hari, who was also a star. I mean, she was a star. You can say that she was like today's Dita Fontees, or maybe a famous singer. But some people believe that she was actually not a spy, that she was scapegoated. Others believe that she may have passed on trivial information out of survival or manipulation. But either way, in the end, she was arrested by the French and executed in 1917. And she reportedly even refused to wear a blindfold. So she was shot, so that was execution. And this fact that she refused to wear a blindfold even adds to her mysterious, dramatic the picture of her, because she died as she lived, with drama, courage and mystery. Even though this is a quite sad end, there are things that we as modern women can learn from Mata Hari. And I have pointed out some of those things for you. First thing, own your story. Mata Hari became who she chose to be. And you can too. Your feminine power begins when you decide to live with intention. And Mata Hari also shows us that you can reinvent yourself, even after a tragedy, after a crisis, after a breakup. Because that is exactly what she did. And of course, she changed completely locations, she changed her identity. That makes it easier, but you don't have to leave the country or change location to reinvent yourself. You can also, for example, begin by starting a new hobby, such as dancing, for example, which will bring you in a different social circle, which will change the way you move, you feel, you look. So something simple like that can be the start of reinventing yourself. Now, the second thing that we can learn from Mata Hari: move with mystery. We already know that mystery is very addictive, it's very attractive, it's very alluring. I have already made one video about being mysterious like Monica Bellucci, because Monica Bellucci is also one of the feminine icons that I'm talking about a lot on my channel, because she also has and embodies this kind of mystery, the feminine mystery. That is very alluring. Also, Mata Hari embodied this kind of mystery in a different way. And we see that this feminine mystery is something very attractive. So cultivate the art of the slow reveal and speak less. Let your eyes, your gestures, and your energy speak more than your words. I have made a lot of videos about those kind of topics. One quite successful is about how to use your eyes. So I will link that one down below so that you can watch it afterwards. The third thing that we can learn from Mata Hari: dance into your feminine essence. I consider dancing as a very important part in my life and a very beneficial part with regard to being more feminine and more confident as a lady. I can only say that whether it is belly dance, some kind of sensual dance such as bachata, kizomba, salsa even, tango, or simply walking with grace, moving more elegantly, maybe you should consider starting some kind of dance, or at least develop your feminine movement more, which you can do perfectly on my channel. The fourth thing that we can learn from Mata Hari: be the enchantress. Mata Hari never begged for attention. She drew the people in like a flame draws in the moth. She was composed, elegant, and curious. And that energy is something that any woman can embody. It is about simply believing in yourself, believing that you are beautiful the way you are, believing that you are seductive, no matter what type you are. A kind of healthy confidence. And if you look at pictures of Mata Hari, I don't know how you think about it. Of course, she was a beautiful woman. I mean, the original pictures. But I don't think that she was like an extraordinary, stunning beauty. It's the same as with Cleopatra. There is more to just plain classic beauty or a specific ideal of beauty. It is mostly sufficient to be average, actually, because there are so many things that you can do about yourself. And I am teaching most of those things on my channel. So if you are not yet subscribed, now would be a good time to click the notification bell. And very important, activate the bell, because only then you will be notified when I upload a new video. Now, if you are already inspired to learn more about Mata Hari, I can recommend you a few books and movies. I mean, there are many, but the ones that I have read is Mata Hari's Last Dance by Michel Moran. That's really a beautifully written historical novel with rich emotional depth and sensuality. Then there is one by the famous author Paulo Coelho, and it is called The Spy. So that's poetic and haunting, and it offers a powerful feminine perspective on her final days. Another interesting book is Femme Fatale, and I think I have read this one, but I'm not sure anymore. I will definitely reread it. And with regard to movies, there is a very old but famous one starring Greta Garbo, another feminine icon, so maybe that would be interesting to watch. It is called Mata Hari. It is from 1931, and it's a classic cinematic portrayal filled with glamour and mystique. And then I have come across a very recent series about Mata Hari, and I think it's a Russian series. It's also called Mata Hari and very modern. And I have also shown some excerpts from this throughout my video, and I will also watch that one, because now that I have discovered it, of course, I'm very interested. I mean, you can learn a lot about Mata Hari, also more about the historical facts, because here in my video and on my channel, we are of course focusing more on the femininity aspect, on the sensuality aspect, on the movement. Like under this aspect, we see that feminine movement, it is not just movement. It is a language, a spiritual channel. Mata Hari knew this. The most important thing to remember and to learn is that when we as feminine women reconnect with our bodies through sensual, intentional movement, we don't just seduce, we awaken. And that's the beautiful and important thing. So let Mata Hari be your reminder. Your elegance is your power. Your softness is your strength. And your mystery is your magic. So until next time, stay graceful, stay radiant, and never stop dancing. Thank you for watching, and I see you in my next video. Bye bye.